Hey everybody, hope you are doing well. Just wanted to get started with today's presentation, the environment and evolution. Looking at evolution, we're going to talk about how the environment actually influences and helps this process occur. So our essential question for this week is, how do environmental factors influence the process of evolution? And you might know some, and so hopefully some of this is a good review. If it's all new, no worries. So after today, you should be able to explain how the environment can influence this process of evolution, define the term natural selection, and identify four factors that drive natural selection or evolution to occur. Okay, and we'll talk about those four in a minute. So we're going to do a quick check-in from last week. So again, if you were able to complete the Unit 8 Day 1 Evidence for Evolution notes, then please, you're good. Don't worry about that. But I know that for some of you, you might not have been able to do that because of Schoology giving you some issues. So if you remember, I did share the Google Doc with you. You should have completed that Google Doc. All that I ask is that you transfer the answers from the Google Doc to the Schoology assignment. So you literally will just be copying and pasting the answers that you already have there and then submitting it through Schoology. It'll be a lot faster for me to grade through Schoology and then get that on PowerSchool for you. So if you're going to do that, you can pause that video now. If you've already done it, you can continue watching through. So let's look at the environment and evolution again. So natural selection is a term that's really important in biology. And it's something that we use almost as the cornerstone of evolution. So I want to define that for you. So natural selection is defined as organisms that have physical traits that are well adapted or good for their environment. And they tend to survive and reproduce, thus passing on these traits more frequently than other animals in their species, right? Remember, the environment is what determines if a trait is good or bad. And we talked about that a little bit when we talked about mutations. And so you'll see some of that come to play in this conversation today as well. So what are some examples of how the environment can influence evolution, right? So first thing is, like, think of something like camouflage, right? Or the type of plants or scenery in that environment. So different types of plants could let some animals blend into the surroundings. That means that predators aren't going to find them very easily. That means that they can hide more easily. That means they're less likely to get eaten, which means they're more likely to pass on their genes through reproduction, right? So camouflage is one way. Food availability. If an animal has a certain structure, claw, wing, beak that is well suited for the type of food that's common in that environment, they're more likely to grow older because they're able to get food and nutrition and grow, which means they're more likely to reproduce, which means they're going to be more likely to pass down those traits for that favorable characteristic to future generations. Okay. And then reminding you about those environments and genes that we talked about. Again, if an animal has a trait that's good in the environment, it's going to allow them to live longer. It's going to allow them to reproduce more, which means there's going to be more offspring that are going to have the DNA, the genetics, or the genes for that trait. Okay. So what are four factors that influence evolution? So the first one is population size. Okay, the size of the population, right? And when I say population, I'm talking about the group of animals. The second is variation of traits or alleles, right? Random mutation and sexual reproduction. Those things cause variance. Remember, we want to have a bunch of different traits and a bunch of different alleles that we can pull from, because maybe this one trait is good in one environment. If the environment changes, if we have another trait available, then we can use that. Okay, so just kind of reminding you about those random mutations help those variation, as well as sexual reproduction, because remember, we're getting genetically unique offspring all the time. The third factor is competition for resources. Organisms that have traits that are well suited for their environment are more likely to be able to get the resources that they need, water, food, shelter, those types of things, in order to survive for a longer period of time and in order to reproduce more. And then the last one is the rate of reproduction, right? We need to make sure that that population is able to reproduce at a relatively quick rate or balanced rate so that we can make sure that the population is growing or at least increasing slowly, not getting smaller. Okay. And so I broke that down into this image, and I just kind of thought it was natural selection in a nutshell, kind of what you're seeing here. Again, I put the same thing that I just talked about on the last slide, I put over here, but you can kind of see there's a little bit more terminology there. But we have these birds, right? Okay, well, these birds are eating these green beetles. They're just so yummy. All right, well, generations later, look what happens. We're starting to see that more orange beetles are taking place. Now, in this example, the orange is supposed to be that the orange beetles are able to camouflage a little bit better, even though we could see them. And so generation after generation, what we start to see is we start to see more and more beetles that are orange. And the reason for that is because they're not being eaten as frequently, which means they're more likely to be able to reproduce and to survive and to live for longer periods of time and reproduce more, right? And so these are some just, I'm hoping, a helpful example of how natural selection occurs. And again, how it's really, if you look at where we started from where we ended, how it caused that evolution, that change in that population of beetles in this example. All right, so you're gonna take your cactus check at this time. I'm hoping that this video kind of gave you just a run through um, and showed you the four things that are really important in making sure that evolution takes place, how natural selection occurs, again with those four things. Okay, and feel free to message me if you have any questions. Good luck.